Welcome to Shine the Light. Good to see you all back. We're blessed to have Charles Heller with us again with the Arizona Citizens Defense League. What we want to do this time is talk about some more of the specific stuff that has been introduced. For those of you that maybe aren't aware, is that up until I think it was the 19th of this month, people could put in bills and so forth, and so a whole bunch of bills were put in, and it's always important to know what that is, because those are the things that will come along to affect how we all live. And so we want to kind of kick around some of these things that are both pro Second Amendment, pro-gun, as well as those that are pro-gun control, and trying to somehow limit our Second Amendment rights. So again, Charles Heller is here with us again from the League, and I appreciate you being here, Charles. Good to see you as always.
Thank you.
And so fill us in on some of the stuff that the legislature's been getting and chewing on.
There are a number of bills that have gone through the legislature or attempted to have been sent through the legislature.
Okay.
The most of the bad ones are dead, but the first one was House Bill 2111, which is which is not dead. The Second Amendment Enforcement Act. Basically, it proposes that any act, law, treaty, rule, or regulation of the U.S. government that violates the Second Amendment would be unenforceable in Arizona. And additionally, state and local government resources could not be used to enforce any act, treaty, rule, or regulation of the U.S. government that violates the Second Amendment.
Gotcha.
The key is the second part of that, because what it does is it enacts a state preemption against the local municipalities cooperating with any government enforcement.
Okay.
The state cannot block the federal government from enforcing a law in a state. If it's a federal law, the state can't block that enforcement. But what the state can do is mandate that no state, county, city, or other enforcement agent of government expend any government money or government time in assisting them in doing that.
Okay.
And so that's an important distinction, because you cannot interfere with the enforcement of federal law.
Okay.
However, if ATF intends to do a raid and they say we want TPD, Tucson police would be all too glad to go with them, but Phoenix police might not, or certainly Prescott police would say you're on your own, boys.
Right.
But oh, by the way, we're we can't spend any money on it, but our citizens have erected a neon sign that says ATF, and it's going to follow you with a drone.
That's right.
And so I wouldn't come here if I were you.
That's right.
Now they might. I'm of course being facetious, but what I'm saying is that the state can't block federal enforcement, but it can certainly not be uncooperative.
Right.
And what's really important, and we saw this in Tucson 3 years ago, was when Tucson insisted on destroying firearms in violation of state law that had been seized by the police. They destroyed 4,280 firearms over a period of some years, and they paid money to do it. And I'll get a little tip for you: not all of them got destroyed that were supposed to have
I'm
been.
sure. Yeah.
Some of them floated away.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, but the point of the matter is that they were doing it in violation of state law. There was no enforcement clause in there.
Okay.
In 2016, we supported a bill, Senate Bill 1579, which says if they're not in compliance with state law, they can lose all their state shared revenue until they change their law.
Change it.
Tucson basically thumbed its nose at the state legislature.
Yeah.
Representative Fincham filed a complaint on it. Attorney General Brunovich investigated it, found Tucson was in violation, and then ordered the state treasurer to suspend all state shared revenue.
Really?
They would have lost $150 million in 2017.
Okay.
The only thing Tucson could do was go to the state Supreme Court in a special action, and the Supreme Court ruled against them 7-0.
Wow.
They either bring their law into compliance or they lose their revenue, which of course would have bankrupted the city of Tucson.
Sure.
So the city of Tucson voted to change its ordinance 4-3. And guess who one of the three was? The serving mayor now.
Oh, gee. Okay.
That's why preemption is so important.
Yeah.
I went long on that one, but another one
that's fine.
but I'm trying to explain principle behind it.
Sure.
The next one is 2448 by Randall Freeze, which we of course were in opposition to and is now dead. and would have imposed a 3-day waiting period, turning a right into a
Yeah.
privilege, a government-granted
Yeah,
privilege.
he seems to be on a lot of those in there.
Yeah,
He's obviously
a-
pushing this.
He's now a sitting Randy Freeze.
See,
No, he's in Tucson.
is he Tucson?
He's in
Okay.
Tucson, and it just he doesn't have good ideas.
Yeah. Well, and
would
I think
make
it's
it a-
important to know here is that in this list there's probably, I don't know what, 50 bills or something maybe,
Yeah.
and he's sponsored a lot of these.
Lot of
So you
them,
can
right.
see the tactic here is to just kind of flood a whole bunch of stuff in there.
It would have made it a Class 5 felony to transfer a firearm unless you first transferred through an FFL,
Right. Okay.
and which puts all your guns on paper, and also turns again the right into a privilege,
Yes.
which is government granted, and that one luckily is dead.
Sure.
2450, also freeze, would require doctors and nurse practitioners involved in pediatric services to lecture parents and guardians about the risks of gun ownership and safety and proper storage.
Yeah.
Another one was 2451, which we oppose, which is a red flag bill. What red flag laws do is, in the name of trying to promote safety, if someone is thought to be a threat to themselves or others,
Right.
there's an ability to go to court and get an order that seizes their guns. The
Right.
problem with doing this is it's the Department of Pre-Crime, if you saw
Right.
Minority Report, number one. And number two is that it's done ex parte, so you don't get to have a hearing before your guns are seized.
Yeah.
First sign of trouble is a knock on your door that says we have a warrant to take your guns. And the next problem is that you then have to ask for a hearing to get them back. There's a name for that. It's called guilty until proven innocent.
yeah.
And this is how we used to treat ethnic minorities in this country.
Right.
So if you like Jim Crow, you'll love red flag
Sure.
laws.
Well, and you know the whole, like you say, it turns upside down our basics of innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
And of course, as has been pointed out in numerous articles, is that it was totally open to all kinds of abuse. For example, you have an ex-spouse who doesn't like you, so they call and say,
Right.
he's crazy or whatever. So it's
I'll give you another
foundational
example.
problem.
I work in radio. Under the previous ownership of the radio station, I had authorization when I needed to. And our radio station was in the county, not in a city.
Okay.
Right? I had a sand bucket, and if I needed to demonstrate what a firearm sounded like, I could fire it into the sand bucket on the radio. I did it a few times on the air
Okay.
over a number of years. But let's say you have somebody who's anti-freedom, and they're listening, and they said, "Ooh, Charles Heller shot a gun inside the radio station.
Yeah.
He's violent."
Yeah.
And they say, and I heard it, here's the recording.
Sure.
Here's him shooting guns inside the radio station.
Yep.
And they get an order, and 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody shows up at my door with a warrant.
Sure.
Well, there's a problem with that.
Absolutely.
I don't even have violent thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I know a lot of veterans here in Prescott. As you know, we have a great big veterans hospital here. A lot of them were
didn't
concerned
know
about that because it's one of the better ones. I mean, this is a
Good.
good hospital here. But that came up with a lot of these guys in talking to them is that somebody says, well, I don't like him for whatever reason, and so I call in and say, well, he's got PTSD or whatever they say, and like you say, there's no presumption of innocence, and they go out and take his guns. I mean,
Right.
that's just not right at all.
I have an experience I've had over the years. I've had 3 blind people come to me for concealed weapons permit training.
Okay.
There's no requirement for vision in the
Right.
law. And the way we handle that is we line up their cane with the target, and they actually shoot and qualify. And if they don't, I make them shoot until they do.
Yeah.
Okay. No one's ever not qualified. In fact, the 3 blind people I've had take my class have actually been better than some of the people who are cited in terms of their marksmanship.
Yeah.
But I digress. Well, anyway, I have had people, because I'm sent by the radio station to cover some political event,
Okay.
and I may be there with somebody that I'm not there for purposes of my program. I'm there for purposes of the radio station covering the event.
Okay.
Say for instance, on election night. And I've had people say to me, "You don't like background checks?" No. They're an infringement of a right.
Absolutely.
But aren't they necessary? And no, they're not going to stop a single person who's got evil intent from getting a hold of something.
Well, sure.
But all it'll do is make you feel better.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to your feelings, but we don't run laws that way. But I said, and they said, but you know, what about the training and all that? I go, well, people are getting more training now since we took away the permit requirement, so you should be in favor of that.
Sure.
I said, but you know, I've had blind people take the course, and they look at me like I got two heads. Why would you want a blind man to have a gun?
Yeah.
And I look at them and say, I'm not sure I'm hearing you correctly. Are you asking me to infringe the rights of the handicapped
Yeah.
to self-defense?
Yeah.
And they say, that's got nothing to do with that. Oh, yes, it does.
Oh, it does, absolutely.
A blind person is less able to defend themselves than a sighted person.
Yes.
And what you're doing is handicapping the blind person. You actually have the anti-freedom people discriminating against the handicapped.
Handicap, exactly.
And I asked them, I thought you were a Democrat.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got nothing to do with it. I'm afraid it does.
Well, and it's exactly like the red flag laws. Let's
Yeah.
suppose they come in and take all your guns, and now some
Yeah, now
criminal comes in and shoots you.
yeah, no,
So,
you're left with
you know,
is your semi
yeah.
automatic baseball bat.
Well, and even more basic than that is that the guns don't kill anybody. People kill people. Okay? It's like saying, you know, well, your pencil is why you're misspelling things. No, it isn't. You're the one misspelling the words.
Well, you just have the wrong pencil, Hank.
Yeah.
Another one was by Pamela Powers Handley, which we opposed, 2572, which would repeal the penalty I talked about earlier about against municipalities if they didn't obey state preemption. It would basically wreck state preemption.
Yeah.
Of course, and it's dead. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a long list
Oh,
of
I
these
know.
if you want me to go through them.
No.
2581. It wouldn't hurt if I. Is it bad television to put my glasses on?
No, go for it. Yeah.
Well, I look more
I have to do
studious.
the same thing.
Yeah. 2581 is by Jennifer Longden as the sponsor, and it criminalizes your private firearm transfers as trafficking, adds several regulatory requirements for firearm dealers, which would include gunsmiths and businesses that deal in aftermarket parts. Among the long litany of additional onerous state regulations, they would limit your firearms purchase to one a month, reporting anyone who buys multiple firearms in a 90-day period to law enforcement, and visual and audio recording of all sales and maintaining a database of the guns you buy. That one died, failed to meet the February 19th
Yes.
Deadline that we talked to.
Well, and one of the good points on that, and this 127, of course, that's been introduced at the federal level, is that what you own would be public record.
Right.
Now, let's supposing I'm the bad guy. Perfect.
Nice shopping list.
I look up Charles's address and say, I know all the stuff he has, and I'm going to go over there tonight. So you bet. I mean, it's just nuts.
As my financial advisor says, don't do that.
Yeah.
2582, again by Ms. Longden, would create a $1,000 civil penalty for failure to lock up ammunition.
Right.
It too died and failed to meet the February 19th deadline. Again, Ms. Longden, 2583, an overly broad expansion of who can be. It reclassifies what a prohibited possessor is.
Okay.
That also
Okay.
is dead.
Yeah.
This one is from Daniel Hernandez, and 2646, which is an expansion again of who could be called a prohibited possessor.
Yeah.
I imagine if you had.
And again, you know, there's a pattern here.
Right.
We see this pattern of trying to just keep biting away, you know, chipping away at the rights that we have under the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
2810 is one that we actually support and is a really good idea.
Okay.
Arizona has a severe problem with civil asset forfeiture, as do
yeah.
many states.
Yes.
And civil asset forfeiture is the idea that your property is guilty of the crime, not you. And therefore, a mere suspicion, on the suspicion that a crime may have occurred, property is seized by law enforcement, and when they do or even don't sometimes arrest somebody, and then they attempt to keep your property,
Right.
and then you have to file a bond equal to the value of the property in order to get it back. It's guilty until proven innocent.
Right.
And part of the problem is, and even if you don't have to file a bond, it's still, you have to engage legal costs, and sometimes the legal cost, even if you're not required to put up a bond, exceeds the value of the property
Exactly.
seized, and it becomes a moot point.
Right.
So,
Well-
criminal asset forfeiture, if you commit a crime, if you go and, for instance, rob a bank, and you drive a car to the bank robbery and then get caught, I don't think anybody has a problem with seizing either the instrumentality or the fruits of the crime.
Right.
Okay, so you get the bag back, but you also take the person's car away from them.
Right.
If they're convicted of bank robbery.
Yes, if they're convicted, yes.
But the problem is we take their car even if they're not convicted and we don't give it back.
Right.
Now, I'm not in favor of funding bank robbers' cars. But by the same token, the principle is, what if you get accused of robbing the bank? You had nothing to do with it. Okay? The charges were dropped.
Right.
Somebody matching your description, or maybe the same car, or maybe they stole your license plate and used it in the robbery. You get accused of it. You had nothing to do with it, and they come and seize your car.
Right. Right. Well, and there was a lot of criticism of it as well, of the whole civil forfeiture thing, in the sense that a lot of these police departments and so forth were using this as funding.
Right. There's a profit motive.
Sure, they saw this huge, profit motive, like you say, and they were going after these guys, and it was just, unfortunate to see certain law enforcement people with that mindset as well.
Here's one that we support, and it is, I'll get the bill number for you here. It went through the Judiciary Committee, and we support it. I have so much dexterity. It's House Bill 2827, sponsored by Frank Carroll.
Okay.
And it would prohibit businesses or financial institutions discriminating against any firearm entity that supports or is engaged in the lawful commerce of firearms, accessories, or ammunition products.
Okay.
And it's important because what's happened under the current administration federally is you have Operation Choke Point coming back, and they're going to discriminate against businesses that at financial institutions. Well, that would become a state issue.
Right.
And the bank will say, well, we're a federally chartered bank, but the state can say, oh no, you operate in Arizona, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And it would be an interesting test case against Operation Choke Point at the federal level.
Yes. Well, and that opens up this whole issue of censorship, if you will. I mean, look at the people who have cut all the name of companies that, for example, have canceled Mike Lindell. He sells pillows.
Right.
And so,
but you know how dangerous pillows are.
Oh.
I mean, come
we
on.
got to get to smother you with
Yeah,
one.
right. I mean, especially the semi-automatic pillows. Those are just damn dangerous.
So,
and full auto pillows?
Yeah, they're really,
right.
But I mean, it just shows the mindset out there that's very dangerous, very dangerous. I mean, we see this in Hitler's Germany, that kind of thing. Is it you classify a group of people and then you go against them, and it's very dangerous.
Our focus is Arizona.
Yes.
Not historical precedents. House Bill 2840, which is actually a good idea by Jacqueline Parker, and what it would do is it would remove the requirement in ARS 133102 for a gun in a vehicle to be unloaded before it enters the school grounds.
Okay.
Now that's a little counterintuitive. You think, why would you want to promote people having guns, loaded guns on school campuses? Sure. Here's the problem with it. Current law says in ARS 133102, misconduct involving weapons, that you cannot have a firearm on the grounds of a primary or secondary educational institution unless, and it's one of the few exemptions Arizona makes, distinctions I should say, between loaded and unloaded guns. Generally, per ARS 133101, the definition of a firearm is that it can expel a projectile by the expansion of a burning gas, whether loaded or not. Okay, that's what 3101 says. That's the state law. And then 3102 says misconduct involving weapons is driving onto the campus of a school with a firearm unless it's unloaded, and if you leave the vehicle, it has to be locked and not visible from the outside.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what state law says. Well, the problem with that is that now if you drive around with a gun in your car and you want to drive your kids to school, in order to be legal, you've got to take the gun out and unload it. You've got to physically manipulate it, which increases greatly the possibility of having an oops with it.
Exactly.
So what it does is it's supposedly for safety, but it's counterintuitive. What you want to do is say, if you want to prohibit guns being on schools, just saying it's only legal in a compartment of a vehicle, and if it's not removed, fine. You achieve the same result, but you don't have a dangerous condition. Now, of course, the other side goes nuts by saying, oh, you want guns on schools?
Yeah.
No, guns are already there. They're already legal there. A teacher, a principal can have a gun in the trunk of their car
Right.
as long as it's not loaded and it's not violating any state law.
Right.
This is what happened in Pearl, Mississippi with Assistant Principal Joel Myrick when he stopped a perpetrator who had killed several people from going on to the next school and killing more.
Yeah.
So he ran to his truck, got his gun, and ran back onto the campus.
Sure. Well, interesting. It also isn't from a historical standpoint. Didn't Israel institute armed teachers and train them some years back?
In '72 after a massacre.
Was it? Yeah.
And there hasn't been a school massacre since.
Since then, I mean, so
Amazing.
yeah. I mean,
You know,
the bad
and-
guys don't want to get killed.
and look-
so
Not every teacher is going to want to be armed.
absolutely.
And if the people, there is a program for that we're trying to get into state law called FASTER, which is Faculty and Staff Training for Emergency Response.
Oh.
And it has a number of components to it. Number one, training basically to the SWAT level for those who are capable of taking it.
Okay.
Anybody in the school, anybody in school staff, be it teacher,
Okay.
but especially custodial staff,
Yeah.
because they're more mobile around the school, and also administrative staff.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, and most people don't realize this. Do you know what kills most people in these mass casualty shootings? What the mechanism of dying is? It's not actually being shot. It's blood loss. It's as a result of being shot.
Yes,
What
okay.
happens is the EMTs can't come in until the police clear it.
Right.
People bleed out in the
Bleed
meantime.
out before, yeah.
All but one of the Columbine kids died of blood loss.
Is that right?
All but one. The one that was shot in the head in the cafeteria for
Yeah.
not renouncing her faith.
Right.
That was the only one that I think at Columbine of the 19 who died there died because of a direct trauma of the wound. That wasn't as true in Parkland, but some of them died from blood loss. The one of them, for instance, Meadow. I can't think of Meadows. Why Meadow died.
Yeah.
The book. She was shot 5 times in the torso. She died from the direct trauma of it.
Yeah.
But other than that, what the FASTER program does is it equips these people not only with having them qualify with their own gun, but also with first aid, with clotting,
yes,
with blood clotting powder, with chest seal patches and tourniquets.
Sure.
And what it does is the FASTER program teaches people who have been shot, the first responders with people who have been shot, stop the blood flow, and then no matter what's going on around you, once you neutralize the threat, grab them, drag them, and carry them to the ambulance. Because if you get somebody to the ER with a pulse,
Right.
you've got about a 90% chance of saving them.
Yeah.
And that's what the FASTER
switch to
program
the
does.
trauma
And
control.
FASTER in Ohio, where the program started, has saved one life.
Yeah.
And it was a gym teacher who was a FASTER trainee, and a contractor had a saw, and he accidentally bounced the saw into his femoral artery and was seconds from bleeding out.
Yeah.
The gym teacher whipped out his tourniquet, applied it, and just picked the guy up and ran him out
with
to
him.
the ambulance.
Yeah.
They saved him.
Saved his life.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not just the risk of injury from somebody
from shooting.
going sour.
Yeah.
you
Well, it's
know.
always better to have people trained. In the few minutes we have left, what do people need to do now? They need to go to your site,
Well,
and
we-
then
We have
get a hold of their representatives and,
on
support them.
azcdl.org,
Okay.
we have a system. It's called the bill tracking page.
Right.
And then we have a center in there. You can click on each one of the bills to email your senator or representative.
Right.
And also you can get on the the RTS system, the request to speak system.
Right.
And the way that works is, and you can see it on our website, what the request to speak system is when a bill is actually going through committee hearing, the RTSs, the request to speak, come through as an email to the individual representatives and senators in the committee.
Right.
And they don't really read what you say, but they count up the number of people for and against a bill.
Yeah.
And when it's someone significant, they may occasionally read that
Yeah.
that communication in testimony.
Sure.
In during hearing.
Good.
During hearings, and you can get signed up through our website on the request to speak system.
Good.
By
Well,
the way,
I think that's key because part of what we're trying to do with this program, of course, is to let people have a voice. And so what you've learned today and what you see on their website is a way for your voice to be heard heard to support these bills. So as you say, go to the track the bills, see which ones they oppose, and the opposing ones, it looks like, have been pretty well shut down for this session, but then it gives you an opportunity to let your voice be heard to support the ones that make sense and continue to support our Second Amendment. So again, Charles, I really appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
We know more now, and we'll get
At least
back.
you don't know less.
That's it. Good to see you. Thank you so much.
pleasure, Hank.
Yeah, God bless.
I may not be enlightened, but at least I'm not benighted.
That's right.